Well, today, please take your Bible and turn to the book of James as we continue our verse-by-verse study through this book. Some of you are probably wondering, is this going to ever end? Well, it was announced as a summer sermon series, and that's what it is. So the last day for the study in James is going to be on the 21st, so just a couple more weeks. I trust that this study has been beneficial to you because I really look at the book of James as giving us very practical tools that we need to incorporate into our daily lives. Today we are in James chapter 5, verse 12. James chapter 5, verse 12. But above all, my brothers and sisters, do not swear, either by heaven or by earth or with any other oath. But your yes is to be yes, and your no, no, so that you do not fall under judgment. In the next few moments, we are going to be looking at the significance and value of your word. Now, throughout this book, James has had quite a bit to say in regards to our speech, or how important it is to control our tongue, what we say, when we say it, the attitude with which we speak. And please keep in mind, when James wrote this, he did not write chapter and verse. He didn't write the numbers in. Those numbers were added afterwards so we would be able to reference specific verses easier. The book of James, when he wrote it, was simply a letter. It was written in continuous style as you would write a letter today, or an email, or a text, maybe a flow of thought from one thing to the other. You don't typically do your letter and say, okay, chapter 1. If I get a letter that starts with chapter 1, I got to sit myself down for a while, I think, because I'm expecting a book. But that's the way James wrote this letter that went out to the Christians in his day. So we need to be careful that even though we might look at one verse, that we keep in mind the context, what comes before it, what comes after it, what is this verse surrounded by, so that we have the right thought of what the author is trying to say. The very fact that verse 12 begins with the words, but above all, indicates that it's going to go along with the other things he's been talking about. You don't say, but above all, or highest of everything I've said, unless you've said some things before. We say something like, now, we might do this, this, and this, but most importantly, do this. That may be the way we phrase it today. And so, what is going to come after this, James says, is very, very important. But above all, in light of everything I've been talking about, he says, do not swear either by heaven or by earth or with any other oath. This goes along with what Jesus teaches us in Matthew chapter 5, verse 33. Jesus had some things to say about our words as well. In Matthew 5:33, we have the words of Jesus. It says, again, you have heard that the ancients were told, you shall not make false vows, but shall fulfill your vows to the Lord. But I say to you, make no oath at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is the footstool of his feet, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Nor shall you make an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. I guess that was before the days of hair dye. But let your statement be yes or no. Anything beyond these is of evil. Today I want us to take a moment and look at some people in the Bible who made oaths or vows. Matthew 14 is the first one, if you'd like to turn there. Matthew 14, beginning in verse 1. At that time, Herod the Tetrarch heard the news about Jesus. And he said to his servants, "This is John the Baptist. He has risen from the dead, and that is why miraculous powers are at work in him." Which is interesting because we have no recorded miracles of John the Baptist. When Herod had John arrested, he bound him and put him in prison because of Herodias, the wife of his brother Philip. For John had been saying to him, "It is not lawful for you to have her." Although Herod wanted to put him to death, he feared the crowd because they regarded John as a prophet. But when Herod's birthday came, the daughter of Herodias danced before them and pleased Herod so much that he promised with an oath to give her whatever she asked. Having been prompted by her mother, she said, "Give me here on a platter the head of John the Baptist." Although he was grieved, the king commanded it to be given because of his oaths and because of his dinner guests. He sent and had John beheaded in the prison. Here we have the story of a king who made a promise with an oath that resulted in the execution of John the Baptist. Even though the king didn't want to go through with it, he had to because he made an oath. And because he had done it in front of dinner guests, he had done it in front of witnesses, which meant he couldn't back away from his word. Have you ever backed yourself into a corner because you said something in front of others and had to follow through on it even though you didn't really want to? It's one of the reasons why I don't engage in betting. A lot of people have done some stupid things because of betting, because of words that have come out of their mouth. If this happens, this is what I'm going to do. Or I think this is what's going to happen, and so I'll put this on the line. We find a similar story in the Old Testament book of Judges, in Judges chapter 11. In this chapter, we find the story of a man by the name of Jephthah. Judges 11, verse 30. Jephthah made a vow to the Lord and said, "If you will indeed give the sons of Ammon into my hand, then it shall be whatever comes out of the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from the sons of Ammon, it shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up as a burnt offering." Jephthah is put in this position where he is going to be leading a battle. Because he wants to be successful, and most people who lead battles do want to be successful, he makes this statement, "God, if you give me the victory, I promise that the first thing that comes out of the doors of my house, I will sacrifice to you." God does give Jephthah a great victory, but not everything ended up as Jephthah thought it would. Verse 34. When Jephthah came to his house in Mizpah, behold, his daughter was coming out to meet him with tambourines and dancing. Now she was his one and only child. Besides her, he had no son or daughter. When he saw her, he tore his clothes and said, "Alas, my daughter, you have brought me very low, and you are among those who trouble me. For I have given my word to the Lord, and I cannot take it back." So she said to him, "My father, you have given your word to the Lord. Do to me as you have said, since the Lord has avenged you of your enemies, the sons of Ammon." This is an example of how a vow is made in haste or desperation that can result in sorrowful events. I'm sure that as Jephthah won a victory over his enemy, he was excited to return home. word of her father's victory had reached his daughter, so that she sees him coming and she rushes out of the house dancing and singing, her dad, the victor, is home, not knowing the vow that her dad had made, not knowing that her dad, in his desire for victory, had hastily said, whatever the first thing is, never thinking it would be his daughter. I'm sure in his mind he thought it would be some animal, but it was his daughter. Now there is question, because we're not told exactly what occurred, there is question as to whether or not he actually offered her as a burnt offering, or whether she was completely dedicated to the Lord for the rest of her life. Now, does this mean it's wrong for us to ever make vows or take an oath? I don't believe it's necessarily wrong, but I believe we should be very careful before we enter into that. If you've ever had to go into a courtroom setting as a witness, before you take the witness stand, you will be asked to take an oath that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. In a wedding ceremony, there is a part of that ceremony that is called the vows. The promise to live together as husband and wife till death do you part. And we need to understand that a vow, an oath, a promise, whatever you want to call it, that those things that are made before God is something He fully expects you and me to keep. So be very careful before you speak something too quickly. Be very careful of the words that come out of your mouth. Now, Herod could have said, well, I know I gave my word that whatever you asked for, I would do it, but I didn't know you were going to ask for this. I mean, what girl wants the head of a dead man on a platter? I'm sure Herod was not expecting that request. I'm sure he thought she would probably ask for jewelry, new dress, maybe some money to buy a new car. Just kidding, they didn't have cars back then. Come on, pay attention, people. I'm sure in his mind he was just thinking, whatever gift you ask of me, I'll give you a gift. And to be honest, the daughter did not come up with that idea on her own. It was her mother. See, her mother was engaged in an adulterous affair. John the Baptist had approached them on occasion and said, it's sinful. What you're doing is sinful. It's not right. There are times where we as followers of Christ have to point out the errors of other people's decisions, and we would like to think that they would be like, oh, thank you for pointing that out. I will make the change. Oh, thank you for telling me about that. I will not make that decision. I'll stop what I'm doing. And sometimes they do. But many times what they do as a response is, who do you think you are telling me? Or the response is, I thought we were friends. Why are you saying this to me? John pointed out what was right in the eyes of God, and it was not received well. And this woman, hearing the promise of the king, says, this is what I want you to ask for. Now, I don't know what she did with it. And it's a pretty sick thing to think about. To ask for someone's head, to ask for someone's death. But Herod couldn't back down without losing face. He couldn't back down for the sake of his pride as the king. Likewise, Jephthah could have said, God, I know I promised you, but I didn't expect this to happen. How about if I give you the second thing that comes out of the door? Again, the significance of a promise kept in the eyes of God. It's like the story of a vacuum cleaner salesman. This man was traveling around selling vacuum cleaners door to door. Obviously, this is an old story because I don't think it happens today. But he knocked on the door of a house, and a little old lady answered the door. Good morning, said the young man. If I could take a couple of minutes of your time, I would like to demonstrate the very latest in high-powered vacuum cleaners. Go away, said the old lady. I haven't got any money. And she started to close the door. Quick as a flash, the young man stuck his foot in and wedged it. Don't be too hasty, he said. Not until you've at least seen my demonstration. And with that, he emptied a bucket of horse manure on the hallway carpet. If this vacuum cleaner does not remove all traces of this horse manure from your carpet, madam, I will personally eat whatever is left. Well, she said, I hope you've got a good appetite because the electricity was cut off this morning. Be careful to know all the details before you make promises you don't want to keep. When James writes to us about not swearing an oath, I believe it is in the context of oaths taken without thinking, speaking rashly, speaking quickly. Earlier in this study, we talked about being slow to speak and quick to hear. We hear and perhaps say things like this all the time, probably without thinking. We'll tell someone something and it sounds unbelievable, and we'll add, I swear on a stack of Bibles it's true. Or sometimes we might have this, may lightning strike me if this is not true. Or we'll say, I swear to God it's true. If phrases like this make up parts of your conversation, I trust that today you see the seriousness of invoking such things, and that you'll make up your mind to change the way you talk. You see, it is this type of swearing, oath-taking, that James is warning us about. The flippant remark, the nonchalant way that we use God's name without thinking. These are not the marks of a strong Christian man or woman. Why? Well, because the words of Jesus and the last part of James 12 tells us why. Let your yes be yes, and your no be no. The standard of your life should be how you keep your word. That if you say something, it's going to be done. And if you feel you need to add some type of additional proof you're telling the truth, then something is wrong. If you feel you need to add those phrases in, or people won't believe you, then something is wrong. You see, as a follower of Christ, we should be men and women of our word. If I say yes, then I mean yes. If I say no, then I mean no. Now with that, let me add, don't be afraid to make a commitment. I got to tell you, this is one of the things that I see in the church realm that is challenging. We ask people to be involved in an event or to be involved in a ministry, and many times this is what I hear. I just don't know if I can make that commitment. I just don't know if I could promise to be there. Now, I can understand that if you have an uncertain schedule, but I think a lot of times what we're simply saying is, there might be something better coming along, and I just don't want to say I'm going to do that. And that's understandable. Then say that. Say, Pastor, I think I would rather do something else. If you say to your spouse you're going to get something done, and you don't do it, you are hurting yourself and others. Now, some of you are like, Pastor, you're starting to meddle into my personal life now. If you tell your children or your grandchildren you're going to take them somewhere, make sure you take them. If you tell them you're going to play with them, make sure you play with them. Because if you don't, you are hurting yourself and you are hurting others. If you tell a ministry leader that you will be there to teach or help out or provide the snack and you don't do it, you are hurting yourself and others. If you put your name on a sign-up sheet saying, I will be here and I will pay the price, and then change your mind at the last minute, you are hurting yourself and you are hurting others. Now, we use sign-up sheets at our church quite often. That's why we have all those tables in the foyer. A lot of our announcements are, hey, sign up in the foyer. One of the things in our ministry network, Pendel Ministry Network, one of the policies that they developed is once you register for an event, and they make you pay up front, once you register, there are no refunds. Once you give your word, you're expected to hold to your word. Now, you can, if something happens, you can transfer it. Someone else can go in your place, and that's acceptable. But we're not the only ones who do that. Many businesses have similar policies. You make a doctor's appointment, and you don't cancel within the appropriate time, they're going to charge you $25. You want to go to a concert or some type of similar production, you got to pay for your tickets ahead of time. They don't do sign-up sheets. You got to pay to get your ticket. Now, some people may not understand that thinking, but if you realize that by signing your name, you're making a commitment, you're giving your word. Because by doing so, leaders make plans, preparations are made, expenses are put out. If something unexpected has occurred that won't allow you to go, again, maybe you can send someone else in your place. But we need to fulfill the conditions of our word, including the financial ones. Now, by this point, you might be thinking, okay, Pastor, I understand how I might be hurting others when I do some of those things, but how am I hurting myself? Because I'm actually doing what I want to do. Well, simple. You are laying a track record. You are creating a reputation of your character in the lives of others that you can't be taken at your word. Scripture says a good name is better to be chosen above all things. Now, that's not talking about whether your name is Bill or Bob or Jenny. It's talking about the reputation of your name. When your name is spoken, what thoughts come to people's minds? When someone says, oh, so-and-so said they're going to do this, does everyone say, oh, that's great? Or does everyone roll their eyes and be like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it? Reputation, character. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. If people in your life can't trust your word, or they are skeptical when you make a commitment, don't get angry at them. You've caused people to think that way about you. Again, I know things happen. I know unexpected things occur. I know cars break down. I know hospital visits can occur in a moment. And I'm not really talking about those things. People have an understanding when something like that occurs. I'm talking about the cases where, I'm going to go do this, and then someone says, hey, I got a free ticket to the Steelers game. You want to go? Oh, you bet you. I wouldn't miss that for the world. That's what I'm talking about. Steelers, Eagles, whatever team you root for. Yeah, some of you might not care. But we are all faced with the challenge of, what if something better comes along? Again, I want us to be mindful that we should not be afraid to make the commitment. Do you know Christ calls us to commitment? He calls us to be committed to Him. He calls us to follow Him. He calls us to walk in obedience to Him. And He doesn't say, follow me as long as it's convenient. He doesn't say, follow me as long as you like the way I'm leading. No, it's a pretty blanket commitment. Follow me. Do what I ask you to do. And so as followers of Christ, we should not be afraid of making commitments. And when we give our word to do something, yes, sometimes it may cost us something we weren't expecting, but because we are going to be people of our word, our yes is going to be yes, and our no is going to be no. Now, if I've stepped on your toes, it's probably because you left them out where they shouldn't be. Listen, what I'm saying is, let's show ourselves to be faithful men and women in what we say and what we do. Be a person that people know you can be depended on for the everyday things of life. Give your word and do everything you can to fulfill it. Make a commitment, then see it through to the end. And when the opportunity comes for you to talk to people about the things of God, your words will carry greater influence. I have a little video that I would like us to see at this time.
A lot of people talk a good game, don't they? They say they're going to do this and that. But when push comes to shove, they disappear. When it's game time, they're nowhere to be seen. They say they're going to be the greatest ever, but their work ethic shows average effort. They say they're going to be rich or famous, but their habits are poor and ordinary. Talking is not enough. You must do. Talking is not enough. You must put in the work. You must develop the habit of following through with your word. When you say you're going to do something, you do it. It's called integrity. When you honor your word, you build pride for yourself and respect from others. When you don't, when you talk the talk and never walk, you lose pride and you lose respect. Repeat to yourself every day. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it. If I give my word, I do it. If I talk it, I will walk it. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it. If I give my word, I do it. If I talk it, I will walk it. When it gets hard, I gave my word. If something comes up, I gave my word. I will get it done. don't even have to think twice. I get it done. I will get it done. Talkers talk. Walkers walk. Don't tell them what you're going to do. Show them what you've done. Let your results speak for you. Results say more than words ever will. Keep your word. Do the work. Get the results. Game time. This is my word. I've said it. Now I will do it.
I think you got the point of that. And that's exactly what Jesus and James have been saying to us. Let your yes be yes, and your no be no. It's as simple as that. You can be that person. If you have fallen short of that, start today. Fix it. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. It's like the statement I saw. Unfortunately, it has husbands as the bad guy in this, but you know, wives, when you ask your husband to do something, to fix something around the house, and he says he'll do it, you don't have to remind him every 6 months about it. Some of you get that on the way home. People of integrity hold to their word. Your reputation stands out. We are to be witnesses for Christ. How do we maintain a witness for Christ if people can't believe what we say? It's not going to work. May you show to others that you are a person who walks with Jesus. That you are a person who believes and follows the Word of God. And that you are a person that keeps your word. Let's bow our heads.